Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming tonight. This is the Retirement Masterclass held by DPS Advisors. My name is John Papa. I'm the president of DPS Advisors. You met Luke before. You might have spoken to Luke and Ted Fiore. They're advisors here at DPS Advisors. You've probably met Sue outside as well when you checked in. We do these workshops on a regular basis, and we use libraries all around northern New Jersey, because we try to educate. If you heard me on the TV show, we educate and empower people so that they can make better decisions with their hard-earned money. So tonight we're going to talk about 3 or 4 different topics that are really relevant to people who either are retired or are about to retire. So before we start, I just want to ask you if you can, I know a few of you are on your cell phone like I just was, can you please turn your cell phones off or turn them to silent so that they don't interrupt the presentation? I know the weather outside, the people just came in later. The roads are okay, we're pretty good weather-wise, right? So then I think we're gonna allow for questions. So when we're going through the material, if you have a question, raise your hand, I'll stop you. If I feel like we're running too late on time, I don't want to keep you here too late, then I'll just tell you, I'm gonna be here, we'll be here afterwards, and we'll answer any questions that you have. But for now, we'll start it with, we'll allow questions while we're going, okay? What you were watching before you came in here was a show that we do. It's called the Papa Report. It's broadcast every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. on New Jersey 12 Network, and every other Saturday night at 6:30 p.m. after the news on CW 11, Channel 11 New York. In fact, it'll be airing this Saturday night at 6:30 on CW 11. We'll get into the presentation. The first thing I have to do is, for compliance reasons, is we have to put this up here for about 30 seconds, and that lets us be compliant with the legal people. That's about enough. Yeah, you don't have to read. You don't really have to read that.
Did you, sir? Did you know that for the people with Optimum, there's no more Channel 11?
Yeah. Get out of here. They cut it out?
Yeah.
When was that?
Oh, very recently, the other day.
Oh, get the heck out of here.
You should know that if you're spending money to be on it.
Exactly. Are they negotiating?
You have a phone call to make.
They're still negotiating? Jesus.
I mean, it's gone.
So I've been on phone for 2 hours with Blue Cross Blue Shield today. Now you just told me my TV show is off one of the 2 cable stations.
And so is the Nixon Rangers off MSG. They don't have MSG
All
on them.
MSG gone.
Jesus.
So I think you have a phone call to make.
Yeah, we've been calling somebody tomorrow. Like, what the heck? But well, thank you for that.
Call billing at Optimum, they'll give you a discount.
Call billing and Optimum? I'm like, what are we paying you for put our show on here for?
They're giving me $60 a month off.
Well, good for you. Good for you. So, besides the fact that Optimum's out, or CW's off Optimum, why'd you accept the invitation? This is a quick little video about why I got into the business when I got in 39 years ago. Can't believe it. This is 40-second video.
My dad struggled as a beautician. My mom never worked, and we had 4 kids living in a 1-bathroom house. My first memory of money was when I was in grammar school, and I'll never forget, lunch was 50 cents, and my father would give my older brother the $1, and I would have to meet him in the hallway and get the 50 cents change so I could buy lunch. So that's when I realized how hard it is to earn and how you have to respect the value of the dollar. I want my clients to know that the value of money is important to them and it's important to me. When I'm working with their dollars, I tell them, I understand this is your hard-earned money that you worked your whole life to earn. And we're going to do the best we can to protect our assets. And we appreciate the trust you're giving us, and we don't take that for granted. I think what sets us apart is I communicate with my clients regularly, and I think that is the key to a client-advisor relationship. And we have that open door kind of policy in our practice that they know if there's a question, they call my office, they can come in for a cup of coffee, and we'll get that question answered, and they have access to me at pretty much any time they want. I don't think there's one set answer to what retirement should look like. I think it's different for every individual who comes into your door. It really depends on the person, what their vision of retirement is. I get great satisfaction of helping retirees live out their retirement life and designing and implementing strategies for them and helping them reach their goals. when I started this business with my dad in 1986, I never thought it would get to the point where we are today, where we're impacting people's lives in a positive note. I'm actually seeing where my kids have taken an interest in taking over this business with me as well. It's something I created with my dad 30 years ago, and something that hopefully will be around for another 30, 40 years when my kids are around. I inform and empower people to make better decisions with their hard-earned money so they can enjoy their retirement life, enjoy their retirement goals. I just help them through the process and implement a retirement income plan that allows them to do what they want. That's what I do.
So every time I see that video we play it, I get a little emotional. My dad passed away 4 years ago, and he didn't know that Luke was going to come into the business and be the third generation of Papa to run DPS Advisors. So every time I see that, it gets a little emotional. So who are we, right? I'm John, Luke, Ted. We're licensed fiduciaries. What does that actually mean? That means that we are regulated by the Securities Exchange Commission and FINRA to have your best interests over our own at all times, throughout the whole process of our relationship together, if there is one, right? We have to have your best interest. There's only two types of advisors who are allowed to say they're licensed fiduciaries. And if you get one thing out of tonight, it's that you need to make sure you're working with a licensed fiduciary. The first one is a certified financial planner, or a CFP. The second one is a registered investment advisor, or RIA. We are all registered investment advisors. DPS Advisors is registered with the SEC and the state of New Jersey as licensed fiduciaries. I've been asked as an expert retirement planning specialist, and I've been on CNBC in a show called The Worldwide Exchange that was broadcast in 90 different countries. We talked about investing in retirement. I was also a guest on Fox Business. We have a show called The Wealth Council. It's every Sunday at 2 o'clock. They bring advisors in from across the country to talk about topics that are relative to people who are 50 years old and above. I've been one of the advisors asked to be on that show. I've written articles for Benzinga, Market Watch. We wrote a book. I wrote a book called Avoiding the Retirement Traps. 39 years in the business as a licensed fiduciary. Like I said, I wrote a book called Avoiding the Retirement Traps, and I'm writing another one now. We're almost about 3/4 of the way through, called The Intelligent Investor. Because most people here that we work with are older and have built their plans through 401ks and IRAs and 403bs, and that's where most of their assets are, in tax-deferred buckets. Well, I felt like, and my first book was geared towards strategies to help people in that situation. This new book is geared more towards people who are starting out. We added a whole section of what are the younger people supposed to do? How can we make them not be in the same boat of having $1 million in a 401k that's going to have a 40% tax partner at the IRS? Tell the younger people to start in a Roth, from the beginning in Roth. So that's why we're writing this book. We should be done in another 2 months or so, and then we'll get that out published. We don't sell it to anybody. We do have an Amazon ISBN number, but we give it out to clients and people who attend our events. Okay? I do a radio show on Sundays called WOR, on WOR 710. It's also called The Papa Report. It's Sunday at 2 p.m. every Sunday for an hour. Morgan, Patrick, and I just talk about stuff that we're going to be talking about tonight. So every Sunday, I'm shocked at how many people listen to the radio. We get calls every weekend from people calling in and appointments that want to come see us just because they listen to us on the radio. I didn't think anybody listened to the radio anymore. But if you're around, Sundays at 2 o'clock. It's called The Papa Report. So we're going to hit some topics tonight. First one's going to be Social Security. Then we're going to talk about taxes on qualified plans. And then we're going to talk about investing in retirement and what market volatility has to do with investing in retirement. So I'm not going to talk the whole night tonight. We're going to switch back and forth. We're all going to be speaking. Ted's going to come up now and talk about Social Security. And again, if you have any questions, raise your hand. We'll stop and we'll answer them. If we're running too late, then we'll just push it along and then we'll answer the questions afterwards. Okay? Ted?
Okay, thank you, John. Welcome, everyone. Happy to have you here. I've been in this industry for over 30 years now, not quite as long as John, but I'm up there. But I am the new man to DPS Advisors. I joined the firm mid last year. So as the new person, I drew the short straw and I was asked to talk about Social Security tonight. Now, that's not so bad. I really actually like the topic a lot. But when you come to the realization that there are over 2,700 rules that govern Social Security, and the Social Security Administration did a study in 2018, and they actually determined there are 9,000 different ways for a married couple to file for Social Security benefits. So I have to talk about 2,700 rules and 9,000 ways to file in 15 minutes. So wish me luck.
10, really.
10 minutes. 10 minutes. Snowing out. 10 minutes.
Yeah.
With all of that said, actually, everyone, when they come to our office, right, or come to an educational event, they normally have two questions. It's, will Social Security be there for me when I need it? And the answer to that question is yes, but. And the second question is, when is the best time or the best age for me to file or claim Social Security? And the answer to that question is, it depends. So yes, but, and it depends. You're going to get a lot of concrete responses from us tonight on Social Security. All right, so a little history of why I say yes, but. Social Security was enacted 90 years ago in 1935 by FDR. And at that time, they literally just said, we're going to make the full retirement age at 65 years old. 60's too young, 70's too old, we're going to make it 65. But when you come to the realization, 90 years ago, the average life expectancy was only 59 years old. So full retirement age was 65, but you weren't expected to live until 60, right? So for a very long period of time, there was a lot of money going into the Social Security Trust Fund. If you ever look at your pay stub, right, you'll see either Social Security or FICA. Everyone's always asking us, who's FICA that I'm paying 6.25% of my taxes to FICA, my salary? And that stands for the Federal Insurance Contribution Act. That's all of the money that goes into Social Security, okay? 90 years later, they've only raised the full retirement age to either 66 or 67. So the full retirement age has gone up 1 or 2 years, depending when you were born. However, your full life expectancy has gone from about 59 years old to about 77 and a half years old. So people are living a lot longer than they did 90 years ago. And what's happening as a result of that, if you think about the baby boomers, people were born between 46 and 64. If you think about Generation X, born between 65 and 1980, and then Generation Y, or they also refer to as the millennials, from 81 to 96 or so, right? You've got so many people in those three age brackets. I'm going to stop there. But all of those people, baby boomers, Generation X, and Generation Y, have retired or are going to be retired in the next 10 to 15 years. And last year alone, we had 70 million people who collected Social Security. People are living longer. So people are in retirement now for 20, 30, 40 years and taking money out of the Social Security Trust Fund, right? And it's a pay-as-you-go system, which means I've been working for 30, 35 years. All of the money that I'm paying into FICA every year, they're not holding it for Ted Fiore when I retire and take Social Security. As I'm paying it in, the people who already claim Social Security are taking that money out. So you've got now, for the first time in history, more people taking money out of the fund than are paying into the fund, right? So obviously that's a problem. The fund had grown, there was interest on top of it, but now more people taking money out, the fund itself is being depleted, all right? But since you're always going to have people paying money into the system, there will be a trust fund there. It's just by 2035, 36, 37, if Congress doesn't do something to strengthen the fund again, perhaps by raising the full retirement age or increasing the taxable wage base for Social Security, there's a few things they can do. you'll earn probably 79 to 80% of what you would have gotten had the trust fund not been depleted. All right, we are confident that something will happen between now and then. From a political standpoint, no one wants to be on the wrong side of either doing away with Social Security or telling people, you've been paying in for 30, 40, 20, 30, 40 years, but now you're only going to get 80% of what you expected, right? So we think it will be there. We think something's going to happen, right? I talked a little bit about the taxable wage base. So you talk about the basics, right? When can I file? I hope everyone here knows that you can file at the age of 62, right? So there's retirement benefits, there are spousal benefits, and then if you're married and a spouse passed away, there are survivor benefits. So there's essentially 3 different pools. But when you can file a 62, and if you file at 62, you'll get about 75% on a monthly basis of what you would have gotten had you waited till your full retirement age, which again, depending on the year you're born, is either 66 or 67. The maximum age that you can file for is age 70. Now, you can file later, but there's no benefit for filing any later than 70 years old. You'll see between your full retirement age 66 and 67, it goes from 100 to 130% because each of those 2 or 3 years, they add an 8% cost of living adjustment. All right, 8% a year for 3 or 4 years is a lot of money. And you'll see COLA, right? COLA, for purposes of our discussion tonight, it's not a cold, tasty beverage like I drink too much of. It's a cost of living adjustment, right? So the last 20 years, it's about 2.6%. In 2023, because inflation was high, interest rates were up, the cost of a living adjustment was over 8% for 2023. 2024 it came back down to about 3.5%. This year it's 2.5%. Going forward, it's going to be 2.5%. Now, I mentioned the Social Security wage tax, right? So for 2024, it was $168,600. For 2025, it's $176,100,000. And what that means is if you make $200,000, if you make $500,000, if you make $1 million a year, for the purposes of Social Security, they're only taking that 6.25% out to a maximum of $176,000. So above that, they're not taxing you for Social Security purposes, okay? And then you'll see what the minimum benefit, the full retirement benefit, and the maximum benefit would have been for this year. If you were 62 and you took the minimum benefit, you'd get $2,831 a month. If you took the full retirement benefit at the age of 66 or 67 on a monthly basis, you would get considerably more at $4,018. And if you were 70 years old, waited till you were 70, you'll see the maximum benefit of about $5,100. So there is a significant difference on a monthly basis of how much you could claim. Now, again, it's not a one-size-fits-all scenario. Retirement and Social Security is one-size-fits-one. While, we look like a fairly homogeneous group here, except for Luke, pretty much, right? Even though we're kind of in the same age room, John's a lot older than I am, and he'll always be older than I am, but we're kind of the same, right? Everyone's situation is unique, whether you're married, whether you're single, whether you're a widow, whether you're divorced but we're married for over 10 years, right? If you have dependent children, right? Everyone's situation, depending on, some people ask us, well, can I take it at 62 while I'm still working? You can take it at 62, but not only will your minimum, your benefit be reduced, then they'll also take money out for the wages that you're earning, right? So your benefit's reduced, and they take money back from your Social Security because you're earning an income. If it's over $21,000 or $22,000 a year, for every $2 above that limit, they're going to take $1 back. You have a question?
And contrary to that, if you're age 70 and don't draw down Social Security and continue to earn, and they continue to take.
After age 70, your benefits will not, there's the cost of living adjustment every year that everybody gets, so which is about 2.5%, but you're not going to get that 8% bump anymore. The 8% bump stops at 70, so we don't recommend to anyone to file after you're 70 years old for Social Security.
Regardless of whether you're working or not. Even
Yeah.
if you're working, still file at age 70.
So if you, there's a reason why I'm asking
Sure.
particularly, because I was told that after so many quarters, the amount that would have been withdrawn is $400. That's the maximum benefit. But the person keeps earning,
Right?
and it keeps going up.
Not after 70.
Yeah, after 70, you won't get that bump.
So they
Who
lie.
told you that?
Social Security.
Yeah, no, you
Well,
misunderstood
yeah.
what you misunderstood.
No, I asked it 3 times clearly.
Unfortunately, what happens, Social Security, the people there honestly aren't supposed to give out advice. And if you ask 5 different people that work there, you're going to get 5 different answers, right? But the good thing is that you're asking questions, right?
Which is good.
You just have to ask it of the right people, because there's no benefit after 70 years old. You can wait, but you're not going to get that 8% bump that you've gotten between your full retirement age and the age of 70, right? So that's why we recommend no later than 70. But another thing you have to take into consideration, right, is do you really need the money now? You know, if you're 62 years old and you need the money, then you do file. Everyone, the good news here is that everyone who's in this room right now, right, the fact is, for the men who are here, we can expect to live about 83 years old. Women here can expect to live around 87 years old, right? And half of us will live longer than that. That's the average life expectancy if you're already in this room here tonight. So that's the good news, right? You want to make sure that you maintain your standard of living. You want to make sure that if you're in retirement for a long period of time, that you do not outlive your money. Social Security, when it was enacted, was meant to be about 40% in retirement of what you were making pre-retirement. But the statistics are showing that 40% of women who are single rely 100% on Social Security, and 30% of all married couples are relying 100% on Social Security. Now, you look around the room, like we've got a good mix here. Normally, our rooms are a lot more women than men. Historically, if you think about it, women, often take off of work to raise children, have families, take care of older parents. Things have changed in the last 20 to 30 years, but up to then, men generally made more money than their wives. However, the wives lived longer, right? So wives' Social Security potentially could be a lot lower because of the wages they were making. They're going to live longer, generally, than the men. So they're going to need to kind of make lower amounts of money last for a long time. So it's a very important part. It's not your entire situation when it comes to retirement, right? But you need to talk to somebody about it. Here's an example of a married couple, Ron and Nancy. We've changed the names clearly to protect the innocent. And this is a purely mathematical example. Yes?
Quickie?
Certainly.
Sure. I'm 68, and I took my Social Security because I needed the money at 66 and a half.
All right.
If I quit work, if I retire, would that go up? Social Security? Would my Social Security go up?
Your Social Security, if you locked it in at 66, you'll get the annual COLA bump, but quitting work is not going to, yeah,
So, okay, I see.
right,
All right.
okay?
No, but they'll stop taking taxes out for social.
Yeah, so
He
that's,
doesn't have income anymore
Right.
because he's retired. Yeah, if he stops working, there's no income
Well, yeah,
to
that's kind
tax.
of what I meant. Would it go up because they're not taking the taxes out of my Social Security?
No.
it depends what your total income is. Do you have other sources of income coming in?
No.
So you're 100%. I mean, I don't want to get too specific into your situation
We can do
in
that
front of everybody.
We'll do that afterwards.
But we'll certainly stay to ask any individual questions that people have, right? But great question. So Ron and Nancy, married couple. Again, Ron's a little bit older than a woman, than his wife Nancy, 60, 58. So the life expectancy for Ron is 85, and for Nancy it's 90. Women live longer. We are going to say, for the purposes of this illustration, Ron lives to 85, Nancy lives to 90. If they both choose to take Social Security at the age of 62, and then Ron lives to 85 and Nancy lives to 90, you'll see the cumulative value of the benefits that they took together is about $1.65 million. Okay? If Ron and Nancy did the same thing at their full retirement age of 67, and again lived to 85 and 90, the cumulative value of those benefits would have been $1.9 million. However, if they waited until they were 70 for both of them, Ron lived another 15 years, Nancy lived another 20 years, cumulative benefit would have been $2.1 million. So it's about $180,000 difference between the first two scenarios, or $200,000, then $180,000 between them, and $400,000 between the first and the last. So obviously when you're 62, if you're taking those payments for a longer period of time, right, you're getting money 62 that you're not getting until you're 66 or 67. There is a kind of inflection point at the age of around 77 or 78. If you wait, where those monthly benefits that you're getting that you waited are going to surpass what you had taken from the age of 62. So my two parents are 84, both alive. Had a grandfather who lived to 95. I can expect longevity. My parents, when they both hit about 78, since they had waited to take their Social Security, the higher monthly payments allowed them, when they got to that age of 78, 79, to surpass what they would have gotten for the remainder of their life on a monthly basis had they started at an earlier age. So again, I could be here for hours talking about Social Security. We have some other topics about taxes and about market volatility. If there's any other questions, we'll take them. Any personal situations you want to talk about afterwards, happy to do so as well. Okay? So,
if one spouse dies, does the other spouse file for the higher number?
You get the higher of the two.
right.
Yep.
That's correct. So again, as I said earlier, you have retirement benefits, there's disability benefits, there are spousal benefits, and then there are survivor benefits. So there are kind of four different things even within Social Security that you kind of need to focus. And that's why it's great, to have a plan and to talk to somebody. Okay? All right. Thank you.
Good job, Ted. Another thing that needs to go into the equation as well is health. You know your health. Your doctor knows your health. So when you're doing the calculation or talking to an advisor, if you're in our office or you're talking to Ted or me or somebody else, hey, when do I turn it on or should I turn it on? Health needs to be part of that equation. If your doctor gives you, and I tell my clients, call your doctor. They know your health as well as you do. Ask them, what do you think the odds are I'm going to live the life expectancy or longer? If they say really good, well then, and you can afford to, delay. You'll get more money out in your pocket. Okay? So health has to be a factor. Does that make sense? Okay, so when you guys were walking in here and finding your seats, you were watching a show, the Papa Report, and we were talking about taxes on qualified plans. Who here has a 401k, IRA, 403b, 457? You saved money in what we call a tax-deferred account. Who here? Raise your hands. Pretty much everybody in the room, right? Is it safe to say that besides your house, it's probably the largest asset you have? Maybe even larger than your house? You guys know you're walking around with a bullseye on your back, right? Those dollars have never been taxed. The IRS gave you a break and they said you can take your contribution for that year and you can deduct it off your tax return. So if you made $100,000 and you put 10 grand in your 401k, we're only going to tax you on 90,000. Everybody thinks this is a tax-free situation you're involved with, right? No one told you that you have to pay the tax, or they told you, but they also said you're going to be in a lower tax bracket at 60 when you retire. Everybody heard that statement? I'm going to be in a lower bracket when I retire. Okay, I don't know about you, we see hundreds of clients a year coming through our office. I ask everybody, are you guys in a lower tax bracket now than when you were when you retired? Nobody is. We live in North Jersey. It's expensive to live up here. You have a lot of other assets, Social Security, pension if you have, you're lucky enough to have a pension. Assets off of, income off of assets, whether it's a brokerage account with dividends coming out, whether it's rental income. I don't meet anybody that's in a lower tax bracket than they were while they were working. They're in the same or higher, right? So we ask about, where do you think tax rates are gonna go? Not in the next 2, 3, 4 years, but 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years down the road. We talked about a little while ago, we're living longer. We're living into our 80s, 90s. We're hearing people, I see it on the news all the time, 100, 105, right? We're living longer. Where do we think taxes are going? I'm asking you, where do you think tax rates are going? Up or down? Have to go up. Ted just told you a story about how there are more people retiring, 70 million people on Social Security, more people retiring in the next 3 to 5 years, baby boomers, all those names of the groups, right? Generation X, Y, whatever. More people are retiring, less people working. Our government only collects tax revenue. Tax rates are gonna have to go up. Anybody ever go to the website usdebtclock.org? Don't, because it's depressing. usdebtclock.org. First of all, if you look at it too long, your eyes are going to spin because it's going so fast. We are $36.2 trillion in debt. The interest on the debt that we have is a couple of $1 trillion a year. Just the interest on the debt. Less people are working, more people are going to retire. Tax rates are going to have to go up. Anybody remember one of the best presidents that we had, Ronald Reagan? When he did a movie in 1940-something, he was taxed. There was a 90% tax bracket. He made $1 million on a movie and had to pay $900,000 in taxes back in the 40s. Tax rates are the lowest they're ever going to be today. But everyone is brainwashed into thinking tax defer, pay the tax later, it's the best option. I'm going to go over some numbers with you in a little bit and show you what taxes are like in a qualified plan. You watched the show before that I talked about it with some real life solutions, some cases that we worked on. And when you see it, we feel it's so important that we built a website, dpstaxbill.com. So everyone who raised their hand here today, you should definitely go to dpstaxbill.com. You plug in a little information, your name, your age, how much is in your tax deferred accounts, 401k, whatever, what interest rate you think you're going to earn on that account, and what your tax rates are. And plug in the numbers and see what your numbers are on how much income tax you're going to pay, and then how much income tax your kids and grandkids are going to pay when you pass on that IRA down to them. If you're not doing tax planning, you're making a huge mistake. Who here has an accountant or they use H&R Block or who are one of the tax services to do their taxes? Who here does that? Who does their own taxes? A couple people do their own taxes. Okay. So is this the scenario that plays out? Because most people, this is what happens. You gather all your stuff in January, February, you get your stuff from your brokerage accounts, you get your 1099s, your W-2s, and then you give them off, you ship them off to your accountant or whoever's doing your taxes. They do your tax return. You used to have to go meet them and pick them up and then send them in yourself. Well, now they e-file. You don't even have to go back anymore, right? And then you don't see that person again until next year. We do it all over again every year. It's like a cycle, right? Who meets their accountant in July to figure out one person? Who meets their accountant in July to try and figure out ways to make next year's taxes better or less? One person raised their hand. We did this event Tuesday at luncheon. Nobody raised their hand. Mostly never does anybody raise their hand. You're dealing with a tax preparer, not a tax planner. We're going to talk about some strategies today that can improve the taxes that you're going to pay and what your kids are going to pay on the largest asset that everybody in this room said they had. your 401k, your IRA, 403b, 457. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we go forward. So, we all agreed, pretty much everybody in the room agreed, tax rates are going up. Every accountant I talk to, CPA, tax attorney, and I'm not talking about the next few years. I'm talking about 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Tax rates are going to have to go up. They have to. Because let me ask you this. A politician will never say, or never get voted back in. That's their job, right? They want to get voted back in to be a politician. Their job is to always get reelected. If they projected out a tax plan and said, we're going to tax everybody's income, whether you make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 or $200,000 a year, we're going to tax more of your money. He or she's not getting reelected. We're $36.5 trillion in debt. Do you know how much assets are sitting in qualified plans? 401k, 403b. Somebody take a guess. How much do you think is sitting in there in untaxed money? $42 trillion. So do you think a politician will have a hard sell to his constituents saying, we're going to tax the rich. We're going to tax the people with the pensions, the 401ks, the IRAs. We're not going to tax you, lower income, middle class income people. We're going to tax the people with the qualified plans. Do you think that'll go over well and get reelected? I do. That's why I said you're walking around with a bullet on the bullseye on your back. You got to start looking at ways to reduce the taxes that you're going to wind up paying. So, what are your options, right? You came here on a snowy night. We didn't offer you a bottle of water. I gave you a pen, a notepad to hear strategies on how to make your life better tax-wise. How to make decisions about Social Security. We're going to talk a little bit about market volatility. You can do nothing and just keep playing the game. And I'm going to show you the numbers in a second. Or we can pay a little tax now at the lowest tax rate that we're going to be in the rest of our lives and do some planning to reduce those taxes. And we're going to look at tax planning efficient options. Contribute to a Roth. Convert traditional IRA or 401k, 403b, 457 to a Roth version. On the show, I gave an example of life insurance. It's a great option if it fits your scenario. It's not right for everybody, but you could pass on. If you're looking at just passing on your qualified plans and you can qualify for life insurance, it's a great option to pass on millions of dollars tax-free to your kids and grandkids. It's an option. As a licensed fiduciary, our job on your team is to educate and empower you so you can make better decisions with your hard-earned money. That means every financial tool that's available to you, we have to give you the pros and the cons of it so you can make a better decision. And that's what we do. Life insurance isn't for everybody, but it's a great option for some people. And for the couple I talked about on that TV show, they created $5 or $6 million of tax-free money to their kids and grandkids from their 403bs that they both had and didn't need. It's a great option. So, we do nothing. Let's go back to that. We do nothing and we sit here and we don't do any planning. Let's talk about what these numbers actually are, okay? So let's say you plug in, you're a 65-year-old person, you have $500,000 sitting in your IRA or 401k, whatever you want to call it, 457, 403b, and you're going to do nothing. Your accountant's telling you, just wait till you're 73, that's when their RMDs kick in. Everybody know what RMD means? Required minimum distribution. Okay, you know that on these IRAs, 401ks, that you can only play the delay game so long. At 73, you have to start taking money out of them. Because the IRS, they want to start collecting revenue, right? So at 73, if you had your $500,000 IRA at 65 years old, and you earn 7% interest on the account, which is not too hard to do, you invest it and you earn 7%. At 73 years old, that IRA is now worth $859,000. Your required minimum distribution that year is $34,781. Okay? Increasing every year. And we're going to say you live to 90, or if you're married, one of you is going to live to 90, because it can go to the spouse, no worries, no problem. So if you live to 90, you would have taken out $1.1 million in distributions that are taxed to you. And let's just say we're in that 24% tax bracket. That number is $264,000 that you're going to pay in income taxes. But at 90, you didn't spend all the money to zero. There's still $1 million left in that IRA. That's going to go to your kids or your beneficiaries. Let's say you have 2 kids. They get $500,000 each. They have to open up what is called a beneficiary IRA. And they have 10 years to take the money out over a 10-year period. It used to be over their lifetime. Now it's over a 10-year period. So now Luke and Teddy are your 2 kids. They get $500,000. When you pass away, they have to take out at least $50,000 a year while they're in their prime working years and earnings years, and that 50 grand gets added to their income that they have to pay taxes on. Could that possibly knock them into a 30% tax bracket? So they're going to pay taxes on that $1 million inherited IRA. At 30%, that's $308,000. The numbers, it's a little more than $1 million. The numbers are their taxes are $308,964. So in your IRA that was $500,000 at age 65, between you and your family, you guys are going to be paying $573,000 in taxes to the IRS. That's more than what your IRA was when you were at 65. Has anybody ever shown you that chart? DPStaxbill.com is the website you can go to. What's the solution? Well, thankfully, they're 65. They have 8 years to go before they're 73. So we did a Roth conversion strategy. Didn't want to do the life insurance option. No worries. So at 65, we started withdrawing $78,000 a year and paid the 24% tax. And that $78,000 came out. It depleted their IRA over that 8-year period. So they will receive $626,000 in distributions. They paid $150,000 in taxes over that 8-year period. They converted the $78,000 to a Roth IRA, and that Roth in the 8-year window grew back to just shy of $1 million that they would have had at 73 if they kept doing what they were doing in their IRA. So now you have $1 million sitting in a Roth IRA that's 100% tax-free. They can still take their distributions just like they did in their IRA, so they're going to get $1 million in distributions and pay not a dime in taxes. And then their kids are going to inherit almost $1 million, and they're not going to pay a dime in taxes. So just by looking at alternative strategies, tax planning strategies, you can take your tax bill on your IRA from $573,000 to $150,000. The IRS tax code book is 20,000 pages long. It's not there to confuse, it's there to confuse us, but it's also there to teach us strategies. And these strategies are all in the tax code. To use that tax code, we're not obligated to pay the most amount of taxes. We're obligated to pay the least amount of taxes legally. So if you have a choice of paying $573 or $150, which one would you rather pay? $150. No one's ever talked to you about Roth conversion strategies or taxes on your qualified plan. Who works with a current financial advisor? Who has a financial advisor? Merrill, Morgan Stanley, all the big... Anybody have a financial advisor? No one's ever talked to you about that? I've talked to you guys about that 5 times. About that. You have to at least look at it and analyze if it's right for you. Okay? You can figure out the numbers yourself by going to dpstaxbill.com and run your numbers. And then we can also help you, with that decision-making process. Any questions on taxes, on qualified plans? What are the benefits of Roth income? What are the benefits of Roth income? Well, number 1, tax-free. Income tax-free. Who here pays Medicare premiums? Once you turn 65, you have to pay Medicare, right? You have to go on Medicare, you have to pay premiums. And you know the premiums are based on how much income you're reporting, right? So if you had to take $50,000 or $40,000 in IRA distributions added to your income, do you think your Medicare premiums are going to go up? Yes, they are. But if you took $40,000 out of a Roth IRA, doesn't count. It's tax-free. So there's a possibility of reducing your Medicare premiums later on in life. Before the RMDs, when the RMDs kick in, we're going to kick in, right? That's another benefit. You're going to pass on benefits to your kids, tax-free to them. You're immunized from any tax. I don't care if the government raises taxes back to the Reagan days of 90%. Your income's tax-free. Make it 100 if you want. I'm not paying a dime. That's the benefits of a Roth IRA. And if you're not looking at Roth IRAs, you're making a mistake. We're going to spend a little bit of time on inflation because when you're living on a fixed income in retirement, inflation's huge. It's a huge problem, right? Who here thinks, I think they announced the inflation rate is like 3.7% or something like that. Who thinks it's that rate here? We live here in North Jersey. There's no way it's 3.7%. It's double digits, easy. Easy double digits, right? At a 7% inflation rate, your expenses are going to double in 8 years. So we just talked about longevity. If you're 65 years old, and we're going to live to 90, that's a 25-year window. So think about this. If your expenses are $4,000 a month, in every 8 years at this inflation rate, your expenses are going to double. That means 3 times in your retirement life, 4,000 is going to go to 8, 8's going to 16, God forbid 16 is going to 32. That's what inflation does to income. It crushes it. If you don't have an income plan strategy to combat longevity and to combat inflation, you're making another mistake. You have to have increasing income streams as you move through retirement. If you think you're going to take 4% out of the value of your portfolio and just do that for the rest of your life, you're going to see some numbers that Luke's going to talk about. You're making a big mistake. Okay? So with that, this talks again a little bit about more inflation stuff. We kind of all know. I get a kick out of a gallon of milk. Does anybody really know what a gallon of milk costs? I ask my wife all the time, how much? We bought a gallon of milk. How much does it cost? She's like, I have no idea. We needed milk, so I bought it. But it's like $4 now. It's crazy, a gallon of milk. Oh, so I'm sorry, I moved one faster. So Luke's going to talk a little bit about market volatility in retirement, and then I'll come back. We'll wrap it up. We'll answer questions. Does anybody have any questions right now about taxes? Any questions? We'll be here after, so to answer.
Thank you, Dad. Yeah, so we decided to save the best-looking speaker for last.
This is a comedy show, too. I don't know if you guys thought about that. We're a comedy show. Netflix.
I want to talk to you guys about market volatility and how it could affect you approaching retirement or if you're already in retirement. Investing in retirement is totally different than investing when you're working. When you're working and you're receiving an income, you can afford to be aggressive, and you should be. Once you're getting closer to retirement and you're about 5 years out, that's when you want to start shifting to a more conservative portfolio. When you're in retirement, you really need to worry about market volatility because you can't afford to take a loss in the market and having to take money out of your IRA in the RMD. Once you're 73 and RMDs are due and you haven't done any Roth conversions, that RMD doesn't care if the stock market is down. You still have to take money out by December 31st. So let's look at an example of how a loss could affect you. If you lose 10% in your portfolio, it's going to take you 3.6 years at a 3% return to get back to even. At a 6% return, it's going to take almost 2 years. In 2020, both stocks and bonds were down. Has everyone here heard of the 60-40 balanced portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds? You guys heard of that? Well, that portfolio was down 25% in 2020 because the whole concept that stocks and bonds have an inverse relationship is a lie. It's not true. Bonds are affected by interest rates. And in 2020, the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates, bond values went down, and that 60-40 balanced portfolio got hammered. If you lose 20% and you're now a conservative investor because you're in retirement, it's going to take you 7.5 years at a 3% return to get your money back to even. With the RMD on top of that, it's going to be impossible to do. Let's look at another chart. If you start with $100,000 and you lose 10%, that leaves you with $90,000, and you need an 11.1% return to get back to $100,000. You may think you lose 10%, all you need is a 10% gain and that gets you back, but unfortunately that's not how it works. If you lose 25%, that leaves you with $75,000. You need a 33.3% return to get back to $100,000, which means you'd have to be taking a crazy amount of risk to get that kind of return. So you really need to watch out for market volatility in retirement. This chart is showing a $1 million IRA from 2000 to 2009 with 4% distributions taken out and losses in the market. At the end of the period, this person is left with $480,000. So what happens if you live 25 years in retirement? Because people are living longer nowadays, not shorter. So your investment philosophy in retirement needs to be completely different than your philosophy while you were working.
Who's invested now in retirement and hasn't changed their investment philosophy? You're still investing as if you're still working at your job. You haven't changed your investment strategy in retirement. That has to happen, okay? Especially if most of your money's in IRAs and 401ks like we just talked about, and you're 73 years old, and you have to do it with distribution. So let's just say on December 31st of 2021, your IRA was $1 million. I only use $1 million not because I want to be impressive or whatever, it's because it's easy math for me in my head on $1 million, right? So your RMD for 2022 is about $40,000. So IRS says you have to take out. Does everybody know that? The RMD strategy, right? IRS says at 73, it's about a 4% withdrawal rate of the balance of your account on December 31st of the prior year. So December 31st, 2021, your IRA was worth $1 million. You have to pull out $40,000 in a distribution in 2022. That was the year the markets were down 25%, that stock and bond portfolio. So your $1 million IRA, and this is your first year in retirement, your $1 million IRA is down to $250 because of the market losses, and you have to take out $40,000 in a distribution. You're now left with $710. Your first year in retirement, you're down almost 30% in your portfolio. See, when you're working and building and saving your money, you want volatility. You want the market to go down a little bit every once in a while, so you're buying more shares of whatever you're buying because you're contributing out of your paycheck every week or 2 weeks, whatever. Okay? When you're retired and you're pulling money from your accounts, the last thing you want is volatility. Because if you start taking money out in declining markets, which you have to, there's not enough shares left in the portfolio to rebound, to be there to rebound. Does that make sense? So if you're not changing the way you're investing, and you're investing as if you're still working and you're not working anymore, that's another mistake you're making. And that's another thing that we would help address if you would take us up on our offer that we're going to offer everybody in here, okay? Are there any questions about investing, market volatility? Okay. So, every person that comes into our office, we have a 3 investment world discussion. You heard me talk about it on that TV show an hour ago, right? Every person, we have this conversation. When you split a person's assets apart and don't have all your money in Wall Street, because if the people who said they had financial advisors, or if you're managing your money yourself and you all have your money in your brokerage account, every investment in that account has some sort of risk. Bonds have risk, like Luke said, interest rate risk. Stocks have market risk. There's geopolitical risk. Variable annuities have expense risk. Mutual funds have expense risk, market risk. Every dollar you have that's invested is subjected to some sort of risk in the third world. Okay, so when we meet with clients, it's how do we separate this? Here's the ideal plan. I want to have some money in an emergency fund in a bank. I don't care if it earns 0. It's there if I need it. I need to go to a teller and get 10 grand. I got to put a new air conditioning unit in my house, or I need a repair in my car. It's there. I'm not building wealth with an emergency fund, but everybody has to have it. Because if you don't have an emergency fund and you have an emergency and you're going to your retirement accounts to solve the emergency, you're depleting your retirement assets that you're going to use to create income. So we got to have an emergency fund. Then we have to have safe money options. So when you split assets up between Wall Street for longevity, safe money options and guaranteed income streams to let you pay yourself in retirement, because most people don't have a pension anymore, right? Most people, you work for a private company, their pension's gone. In 1978, the 401k came, and now you have to do it on yourself. The pensions are over, unless you're a government employee, a teacher, a fireman, police, a union employee. We don't get pensions. I don't have a pension. No, they don't have pensions. Most people don't have pensions anymore. All those companies that offered pensions don't do it. They're all gone. Okay, so you can't use your assets for an emergency. So we have to have safe money options in place to create guaranteed increasing income throughout your life to combat inflation, taxes, longevity. So when you split assets up like this in the 3 investment world, get some of your money out of Wall Street to not be subjected to market risk. And our job as your licensed fiduciary is to show you what those options are, educate you and empower you so you can make a better decision with your hard-earned money. You can make a better decision. And that's exactly what we do. For 39 years, we've been doing that. We serve about 325 families here in the northern New Jersey area. And that's what we're going to offer you guys tonight. So pretty much why we do this in libraries is because it's all about education, right? And the libraries, the Yogi Berra Museum, it's education. So we told all of the people that we will offer a free, no obligation, no stress, complimentary, come into our office, tell us why you came here on a snowy night, and let's see what's going on with your financial life. Is it income we need to create? Is it market volatility? Is it taxes on qualified plans? When to turn on Social Security? We're offering everybody in this room the opportunity to come to our office in Roseland, spend an hour. You will not be pressured to do anything. There are people sitting in this room that have been in my office multiple times and have never been pressured to do a thing. You'll never be pressured. My father and I started this practice 39 years ago with educate and empower people so they can make better decisions. So with that, we're done. We'll stay here and answer questions for you guys. Thank you very much for coming. Hopefully we educated you a little bit. If you have some questions, we're going to be here. We'll answer any questions that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Yep.